People are actually moving out of the state of Florida because they cannot stand traffic, congestion, and development. These words bring anger to the average Floridian. From Naples and the Golden Gate Estates to Jacksonville, St. Augustine, Sarasota, and the Tampa area, the traffic and snowbird congestion is the worst it's ever been. But in reality, it's just another season in Florida, and to be honest, this one isn't the worst I've seen. Many people feel that the traffic, the development, and the overcrowding in the state of Florida is more than they can handle, and they're moving to other places that are less congested. I can totally relate. In 2020, when I moved out of the state of Florida, towards the top of my concerns was just how much of a nightmare the traffic had become in Naples, where I used to live. Let me explain to you what happens to us here in Florida, why we get aggravated at the current situation. We get a lot of blue skies. I feel full of life. But when you go outside day after day and all you see is gray skies, that is a depressing feeling. I never really liked palm trees when I lived in Florida. In fact, I had a beautiful palm tree in my front yard, and I actually cut it down because I did not care for palm trees. Since I've moved back to Florida, I really appreciate palm trees more. In other words, it took moving away from Florida for me to realize how much I love the warm weather, the blue skies, and yes, even the palm trees. Those are some good Florida luxuries that I really wasn't appreciating until I saw myself without them. I even tried growing palm trees in Alabama, and there's a few varieties that you can grow in Alabama, but it's not like when you enter South Florida and everywhere you look you see palm trees. If you live in South Florida, every single year, you need about a 2-week vacation to reset your clock. You need to go to Tennessee. You need to go to Michigan. You just got to get out of Florida during the winter. Take a little vacation, see some snow, see some cool weather, and then when you freeze to death for a few days, you'll be glad to be back in Florida. I'm almost convinced that a lot of Floridians who think they're ready to move out of Florida are people who've never taken a vacation up north in like the last 20 years. Now, on my YouTube channel, I say a lot of horrible things about Florida, but let me tell you, there's a reason why I moved back to Florida. Well, there's many reasons, really, but included in that list are blue skies, beautiful beaches, warm weather, palm trees. I miss growing my tropical fruit plants. There's states like Texas or South Carolina, bless their heart, they think they have beaches, but they don't really know what a real beach is because they haven't came to Florida. And some of the topics that I explore in detail about Florida, like homelessness, are things that are happening throughout the entire country. If you move to another state because of politics, you are a complete moron. That is like the last factor that should matter when you are moving. When you're moving somewhere, you have to like the place. You should probably have family or people you love there. A lot of people like the state of Florida because you don't have to pay taxes. Well, guess what? Since you don't pay taxes, your state doesn't have good infrastructure. Take the state of Texas. It's got other industries that, despite not being a tax burdened state, the state of Texas with its industries is able to help have good road projects. Meanwhile, here in Florida, one of the reasons we have so much congestion is because there's no infrastructure projects. There's no funds to create the roads that the snowbirds need. Now, the snowbirds are essential because the state of Florida does not have taxes for the people that live here, income taxes. It does depend on taxes generated from tourism. Florida's tourism is the reason the state was able to subsidize having to pay income taxes. So those snowbirds that are congesting our roads in Florida are the reason why you are not paying income taxes. Well, here's the problem. Florida's starting to realize that tourism is not viable for its long-term growth. Hurricane Ian, Hurricane Irma, the red tide, and COVID-19 slowed down tourism in the state of Florida year after year, to the point where now we're starting to realize that perhaps tourism is not the long-term solution to Florida's infrastructure. Tourism is one of the most unreliable sources of industry. It comes and it goes, and if something happens, people can always just go somewhere else on vacation. But hey, you live in a congested part of Florida, you live in Miami or Sarasota, Naples, Orlando, or Tampa, and you have just about had it with winter traffic, and you're done. You want to move out of the state of Florida. I've been there. I've made that same decision. Currently, I live in the Sarasota, Bradenton metropolitan area. Traffic here is not as bad as Naples or Miami, but don't get me wrong, it can be horrible. And I will tell you, I do believe that traffic in 2023 was way worse than 2024 from what I've seen so far. We've had more cloudy days and cold fronts in 2024, 2023 than I have seen any other year. And I think bad weather for a week or two is enough to discourage people from coming to Florida. I do feel that this season hasn't been the worst. Tampa, for example, is a nightmare throughout the entire year. It doesn't matter if it's summer or winter, traffic in Tampa is completely unbearable. We have scheduled our life around the traffic so that we're not stuck in bumper to bumper traffic all winter long. A lot of people don't have the ability to do that, but we have the ability, and we've scheduled our life in a way that we're not forced to be in that congestion, which would absolutely drive me crazy. Let me tell you, if I had to be stuck on Interstate 75 for an hour every single day each way, I would personally want to leave the state of Florida. But we moved to a suburb that has good infrastructure, easy access to the interstates, and we try to do most of our fun activities throughout the year during the summer, and we know that during the winter, we have to work our schedule a little bit different. Hotels up north are much more affordable during the winter, so it's a great time for us to go on these long winter road trips up north because hotels are about half as much. Now during the winter months, hotels in Florida can be up to $600 a night or $300 to $400 a night for an average hotel. So what we do is we do most of our Florida trips during the summer. We live in the state of Florida. We enjoy the state of Florida during the summer, and we know that during the winter is not the time of the year to be staying in hotels or be going out into town often. We understand how Florida works, and we've modeled our life around that idea that we're not going to be stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic during the winter. We do all of our activities during the time of the year when there's no traffic. We go across the state when there's no traffic, and when hotels are more affordable. Because we know that now during the winter, even going to a restaurant, there could be a 45-minute to an hour wait. When I lived in North Naples, I couldn't even go to a restaurant during the winter. If the wait to get a table was 45 minutes, you were lucky. Sometimes it would be as much as 2 hours to get a table. Now here in Bradenton, Sarasota, it could be 35 minutes, it could be 45 minutes. It's not as bad as Naples. But the city of Naples, for example, during the winter it gets so bad, there are so many snowbirds that literally you will be waiting in line for 2 hours just to get a table at a restaurant. It really becomes inconvenient and quite literally aggravating. I don't think you have to leave the state of Florida. I think you need to find a part of Florida that isn't as congested. One great thing about Lakewood Ranch is that it's got empty roads compared to the rest of the metropolitan area. Bradenton is usually gridlocked. Sarasota is usually gridlocked. And if you're heading north into Tampa, it's even worse. If you're moving to Florida, careful planning is required to make sure that you do not end up in one of these traffic gridlock areas, places where it takes 45 minutes to drive a mile. We're talking east of Tampa. We're talking North Naples, North Miami. Clearwater, Florida, during the summer is a ghost town. It's empty. But now during the winter, you do not want to get stuck anywhere in Pinellas County. Interestingly enough, the Florida Panhandle, their tourist season is actually during the summer. And during the winter, the Florida Panhandle is pretty much empty. So during the summer and spring break, the Florida Panhandle is at the peak of their tourist season. However, in the winter, South Florida is at the peak of their tourist season. And that should just give you an idea of how different the Florida Panhandle is from South Florida, where even the tourist seasons are complete opposites. Anyone thinking about leaving the state of Florida because of the traffic congestion, let me tell you that perhaps it may be difficult during the winter, but if you do what we do, where you plan out your life a little bit better, we knew traffic was a huge problem when we moved back to Florida. Now we live in Lakewood Ranch, but we strategically picked this area because it's on the outskirts of the metro. We were very deliberate about being close to a Publix and other shopping venues so that if we need to do grocery runs, we don't have to take 45 minutes to go to the store. Another nightmare in Florida is getting fuel during a hurricane. We were purposeful to find a place that was close to gas stations. Even within the same city or metropolitan area that I live now, I could have ended up somewhere which would be very aggravating to live in, but I conveniently chose an area that was the least complicated, right in the city that I wanted to be in. So if you live in Florida, perhaps you don't need to move to another state. Perhaps you can stay in the city you're in or the metropolitan area you're in, but find an area that's more convenient. Buy a car that is more comfortable. Makes a huge difference when you're in a nice, comfortable car versus when you're in a car that's uncomfortable. Another huge plus in Florida is to have a bigger vehicle so that you're not worried about being killed on the road. There's a lot of road raging, angry people, and usually if you have a small vehicle, they're going to be all over you. But if you've got a big, demanding vehicle like a large pickup truck, you'll usually get much more respect on the road. Completing the conversation about road congestion, let's move on to development. Another huge problem for a lot of people in Florida is the development. Obviously, the traffic and the development go hand in hand. The more people move to Florida, the more cars you're going to have. And of course, the more houses we have to build for those people to live in. On the development side, you're not going to find more of a Floridian than me. I grew up in Collier County. Collier County has the largest Florida black bear population, the largest Florida panther population, and has some of the most tropical climate, which means that the Florida fishing is the best in Naples, where I grew up in. When it comes to nature, wildlife, fishing, and outdoor activities, chances are you are not more of a Floridian than I am. I had my house in Naples paid off. I was fishing in the Everglades 3 to 4 days a week. As somebody who studied the ecology of Florida, I wanted to be a marine biologist. I lived a mile from Wiggins Pass, and I was there from childhood onward. Fishing, canoeing, doing trails, off-roading. I lived the Florida life. It's too late. There's nothing we can do to save Florida's ecology. I used to have books that you weren't even allowed to have that had maps of where the Florida Panthers lived in Florida when I was like 12 years old. I was fanatical about saving the Florida Panthers. Growing up to be a marine biologist, these things mattered to me. I grew up watching Steve Irwin. When I moved to Naples, Florida, every single day you could catch 2 different types of snakes. You could go out there and find a coral snake, you could find a corn snake, any snake that existed. Me and my friends would go out there and see how many snakes we could catch in a day. There are no more snakes left. That Florida doesn't exist. Trying to save Florida's ecology, it's too late. Too much destruction has already taken place. We're lucky that we have places that are still protected way out in the middle of the Everglades, and that's probably as much as we're gonna get. Most of the Golden Gate Estates is plotted for development. That means they're going to build houses. If you moved to Cape Coral, you knew it was plotted for development. If you moved to Lehigh Acres, you knew it was plotted for development. If you moved to the Golden Gate Estates, you knew that they were plotted for residential development. So now all of a sudden, you can't sit here and say, well, I moved to Lehigh when it was country. You knew that Lehigh was plotted for development. People in the Golden Gate Estates, those are plotted lots for residential homes. And you have a 75-foot setback in the rear, which means most likely at some point, they're going to put a road through your backyard. The Golden Gate Estates isn't a preserve. Lehigh Acres isn't a wildlife sanctuary. These places are plotted for single family home construction. Eventually, each one of those empty lots will be a single family home. And you can expect that at some point the county is going to do something with that 75-foot setback that you have in the rear, which every one of those lots in the estates has it. 75 plus 75 is 150 feet. That's enough space to put a highway through your backyard. So if you move to an area that's plotted for single family home construction, Northport's coming up next, Lehigh's coming up next, Golden Gate Estates is coming up next. You knew what time it was when you moved in. These lots weren't preserved lands. They were single family home lots. They were going to be turned into houses. And you knew that all of that agricultural land would eventually be rezoned for private developments, gated communities. You knew this was going to happen. If you want to live in a state where they have cows next to the beach, is there a state in America? Let's think now for a minute. Is there a place in America where they still have farms next to the beach? Oh yeah, what's this place called? California. Hey, if you want to live in a cattle pasture next to the beach, move to California. We recently went to California and they had cows, literally on lots that were adjacent to the beach. You knew what Florida was about. They don't care about cows. They certainly don't care about Florida panthers or black bears. The state of Florida cares about tourism and development. Florida doesn't care about the wildlife. They don't care about the ecosystem. So why are you now complaining about how they're going to get rid of Florida panther habitat? They don't even care about Habitat for Humanity to house the homeless people. What makes you think they give a crap about housing wild animals? I hate to hurt your feelings, but if you live in Florida and you don't like development, the state of California hasn't allowed for developers to come in and destroy their state. The state of California still has cow pastures overlooking the beach. Perhaps the state of California, with all their environmental regulations, is more fitted for you. But the state of Florida doesn't care about humans. It certainly doesn't care about animals. Florida doesn't care about its future. Move, die. Florida doesn't care about people. They'd stuff 2 people in a coffin if they could. The same old people that turned Florida into what it is now are the same ones that are now complaining about what they turned Florida into. I care about Florida Panthers. I grew up fishing down here. Guys, there's no saving Florida, okay? We all know what's going to happen to all the agricultural land. It's going to get developed into gated communities. We know what's going to happen to all those empty lots. They're going to be turned into single-family homes. And we know that traffic congestion is only going to get worse. We know that because if they haven't built roads at this point, what makes you think they're going to care about infrastructure moving into the future? They're not. They don't. This is the reality of living in Florida. Yes, traffic sucks. Yes, they're building houses left and right. No, they're not going to put in any infrastructure. There's nowhere for that money to come from anywhere. Not only does the money not exist, but the intentions certainly don't exist because they don't care about Florida's future. All they care about is selling houses to people from up north. Is it frustrating? Yes, it is. Welcome to Florida. This is what this state's about. Now, I lived in Elmore County, Alabama. There's not much of a rush hour there. I would rather be stuck in a traffic jam in Miami or Naples or Sarasota than on a wide open country road in Elmore County. They can keep that country road all to themselves. I want to be here where I can have some Cuban coffee, where I can see the blue skies, where I can feel the warm weather, where I can see a freaking palm tree. So if you want to move to Alabama or Kentucky so you never have to be stuck in a traffic jam again, good. Pack your crap and leave Florida. But let me tell you what I knew when I left Florida. You'll never be able to afford to live in Florida. The house that you're going to sell for $500,000 tomorrow is going to be worth $800,000. And then you will never be able to afford to move back. So I hope if you do leave the state of Florida, you will never afford to move back because the house that you sold will be twice what you sold it for. I would rather be stuck in a traffic jam here with the palm trees and the Florida man and the iguanas and the banana trees and the mango trees and the snowbirds from Michigan and Ohio and Iowa and Quebec. Yes, we have developers. Yes, we have congestion. No, it's not going to get any better. Am I leaving? No, I'm not leaving. I'm going to stay here in this traffic listening to Celia Cruz. And you can move to Alabama or Tennessee or Georgia or North Carolina. And I hope you like gray skies. I hope you like depression. I hope you like snow and ice. I'm going to be here flicking somebody off on US 41. You're either living in a place that's prospering like Florida or that's dying like West Virginia. There's no middle ground. Houses are not built to last 300 years. Houses are meant to last 30 to 40 years. If a house is 40 years old, it's already a bad neighborhood. You're either going to live in a place that's growing and becoming better rapidly, or you're going to live in a place where buildings are being abandoned, where businesses are closing, where houses are burning up because the meth labs didn't work out right. There's no middle ground in America. You're either thriving or you're dying. Time moves forward. It doesn't stand still. So if you're one of those people that thinks, well, everything's changing around me, I'm going to move to a town that's not growing, you're going to move to a town where the people that are from there left. If the people that are from there left and found something better, what makes you think that you, as an outsider who has no ties to that place, is going to fare better? If the people that are from there left and abandoned their houses and businesses, what makes you think that you as an outsider are going to be treated better, are going to feel better, are going to like a place? The people that are from there left. America is a bust or boom place. You're either losing property values and losing population drastically, or you're growing and increasing drastically. And they're not building houses to last 100 years anymore. They're building houses that last 20 or 30 years. So the house that today is brand new in 20 years is in a neighborhood that's starting to get rough. This is America. This is capitalism. You used to be able to buy a car that was 10 years old and it would run another 10 years. If you buy a car that's 10 years old today, you might as well drive it straight to the scrapyard, even if it's worth $40,000. This is America, the land of consuming, the land of swallowing up acres, the land of buying a car every 3 years. The houses don't last 100 years. They have to last 10 years so they can sell you another one, buy a new car, buy a new house, move to a new city. This is America. This is a country of consumerism. Cars don't last 20 years anymore. Houses don't last 20 years anymore. Every 5 years you have to buy a new car. Every 5 years you have to buy a new house because things are made not to last, because that is how this country works. Houses don't last forever. Cities don't last forever. Nothing lasts forever. Swallow up more land, swallow up more resources, destroy more natural habitats, build more houses, build more cars. Welcome to the United States of America. But it's good for you to recognize the fact that all these things are going to happen and that they're out of your control. Don't even stress about it. That's the way things work. Is housing expensive? Yes. Figure out a way to make enough money to stay where you are now, because it's not going to get any easier. After living in an affordable area like Alabama, I would much rather figure out how I'm going to pay an expensive rent in Florida than have to go outside with an AR-12 to get a gallon of milk. With the invention of the internet, we are in a globalized society. There's no undiscovered affordable places. If an area is more affordable, there's a reason it's more affordable. If an area is more expensive, it's because it's better. You're not going to find a more affordable place that's better. It's more affordable because it's crappier. You're going out there on a mission impossible, looking for a unicorn that doesn't exist. The only reality that exists is that life is expensive, and if you want to live in a good area, it's not going to be cheap. And if you live in a good area, more people are going to come to that area because people want to go to good places. Good places are going to be overcrowded. But the type of people that move to overcrowded places are hardworking and successful people. The type of people that live in an affordable town that are from there is because they've never obtained anything more in their life, don't have high expectations for them. You get what you pay for, and good things are not cheap. So if you're thinking about moving out of the state of Florida because of traffic congestion and development, there's a reason Florida's growing, and that's because it's worth it. There's a reason people are paying a lot of money to live here. It's because it's better. But Jose, Florida's overcrowded, Jose. Yeah, of course it's overcrowded. You ever walk into a restaurant where the food sucks and there's people lined up for miles waiting to get in? No, when you walk into a restaurant and there's a line, it's because it's worth getting in there. You're not going to go to a restaurant where there's a line to get in and then the food sucks. It's not that Florida's great. It's not that Florida's perfect. It's that it's better. I would much rather deal with traffic congestion and development than I would with murder, overdoses, crime, violence, hate. It is much better to deal with the problems that we have in Florida than discover the problems you're going to find somewhere cheaper.